Now in this video, let us talk about sequences in Python. So there are four major types that we should talk. First is string, second is list, third is tuple, and fourth is range. So string, as the name suggests, and I have already talked about it, and string is a representation by a group of characters. So you can either keep string with a single quotation mark or you can keep string with a double quotation mark. What I mean by that? So if I want to store string in a variable, so in the previous example we were taking variable name as x, y, z, but for a variable name you can take any name. There are no restrictions apart that you cannot use capital letters. Also, if you want to define two words, like I am defining my name, I'm using a underscore to define these two words. You cannot use spaces between the variable names. So for this example, I am taking the name my underscore name as my variable name. And if I want to store string, that is my name, I can either store as Shubham. Here I am using single quotation mark. And if I try to print it out simply, so suppose I try to do that my name, and you can see the string got printed. And if I try to do the same using double quotation mark, that is also valid. So if I do it again, here you can see it gave us the result. So my major aim was to make you understand you can either use double quotation mark or single quotation mark. But make sure you make a habit. If you are using single quotation mark, make sure you use single quotation mark at all the places. And if you are making your habit as double quotation mark, try to use it at all the places. So string plays a really important part for everything. We will be performing lot of stuff over string in the string section, but let me give a try. So if you want to print any variable using the print command, all you have to do is type the print command, and instead of giving the quotations mark like previously we were doing while printing string, you just directly need to give the variable name. So here if I give the variable name as my underscore name, and you can see I got my result. And if I do the same with the string, I can do with print, and I can just give the double quotation mark and print it here. While printing a variable, you have to pass the value, and while printing anything else, your value should be a string, an integer, or anything else. The second sequence data type is list. So lists in Python are similar to arrays in any other language. It can be C or Java. So a list represents a group of elements. The main difference between a list and array is that list can store different type of elements. So it can store string, it can store integer, it can store float. So it can store different type of data type. Whereas array have a restriction of storing different data types. If you have created an array in a C language or Java language, if you are storing integer, you have to store only integers. But with lists, this is not the case. Also, lists can grow dynamically in memory, but arrays are of fixed size and they cannot grow at runtime. So if I want to increase the size of list, I can do that at any point of time. So let us take an example of list and understand it in a better manner. So let me take a variable name, and I might take it as my list. And to initiate a list, all you have to do is open a bracket and then you have to give your value. So if I'm giving string as my first value, all I have to do is give the value. And if I want to give a second value, then I have to use a comma. As I have said in the definition, lists represent group of elements. So if I want to add a new element, supposedly an integer, that is 5, and if I want to add a float also, so 6.3, and that is sufficient for now. And if I want to close this list, I just need to use closing brackets. Once that is done, press enter, and you can see this is my list is ready. And if I try to print this particular list, let me use my print command, and in parenthesis I just need to give variable name, and that's done. So here in my list I have 3 elements. One is string, that is Shubham, second is int, that is 5, and third is 6.3, that is float. Now we can perform a lot of tasks with lists, and lists are really important because whenever you try to collect anything, that is some answers, some fields of form, anything else, list is really important because you can take many answers and you can add them into a single element, and you have just one variable and you can store a lot many values. Now I think that it is the right moment for you to understand the numbering system and the address of all the different type of data type that we are using. So if I talk about 0, at any point of time, if I say give me the 0th element, that is 0 element, that means I want the first element. So if I print the 0 element of this list, let me take print, and if I give 0 element, so how you open a bracket, you give which element you want, and then you close the bracket. And if I press enter, you can see 0 element means I got Shubham. If I say give me the first element, that means I will get 5. If I say give me the second element, that means it will give me 6.3. So if I take an example with this again, and if I take my list and open a bracket and put the value of second, what do you think what you are going to get? So 0 is Shubham, 1 is 5, then second one is 6.3. Yeah, we got 6.3. So that's how it is divided. So it is basically for any programming language, and you might have seen different type of memes over this. So programmers are really obsessed with 0. So it's an important point for you to understand the fundamentals. The next data type that we want to talk about is tuples. So tuples are similar to lists. So tuples contain group of element which can be of different types like string, integer, float, or any other different type, and they are separated by commas. But in list we use brackets. For tuples we will be using parentheses, whereas list can be modified. So if I created a list, there are only 3 elements, I can add a 4th element at any point of time. But if I create a tuple, I have added only 3 elements, I cannot change that. So let us understand tuple also. So if I take an example and if I create a variable that is TP, and I want to initiate the tuple, all I have to do is open the parenthesis and I need to give value, that is an integer. And what if I give the second value as string? So I can give a second value as unwired, and let me give a third value as maybe integer only, maybe 10, and then the fourth value again as string, so maybe learning. And to close the tuple, all I have to do is use closing parenthesis and just press enter. So we have created a tuple, and now we cannot change this particular tuple, that is, it is unmutable. So if I print this tuple, you can see we got our value. And now if I try to extract the value of this tuple maybe for 0th position, all I have to do is print with TP and try with 0 position. You can see I got the value of 15. So that means if you want to extract any individual element, all you have to do is give the address, that means the reference point. The first reference point is 0, then 1, then 2, and then 3. And if I try to extract a value which is not available, maybe I try to extract a value of 4, that is TP, and then give value as 4. You can see I got an error that the tuple index is out of range. So our current range is 0, 1, 2, 3, and if I try to enter a 4, it is out of range. And I can perform different tasks over tuples, which we'll be understanding in later section. The last point that I want to talk about is range. So supposedly you want to print 1 to 10, what are you going to do? You print 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, or you might take some loops, that is, you give computer instruction that from 1 print to 10. So that's how you can do. So at this point of time we will be using range. So if I take a variable that is R, and if I want to describe a range, I need to give a command that is range and then open and close the brackets. And now here I want to specify from which point I need to start. The second thing I need to pass is till which variable I need to go through, and the third thing is what is the gap I need to maintain. So supposedly I need to start from 1 and till which point I need to go to is 10. 10 will not be included, it will be going till 9 only. So 1 will be included till 9, and then what is the gap I need to maintain? So if the gap is 1, you just don't need to enter anything, you just need to close. But if the gap is more than 1 is the by default value. But if the gap is 2, all you have to do is give 2. So now all the values in R is from range 1 to 10, which has a gap of 2. That means 1, then 3, then 5, then 7. So likewise. So now our R has this particular range. Now what I need to do is I want to print this particular value. But if I try to print R directly, it will be just the range. I need to get the value of this range. So the values that are inside this particular range are 1, then 3, and so on. So what I can do is I can convert this R into list. So all I have to do is just make a queue and then convert this R into a list, and then I want to print this queue. And you can see I got a list that is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So at this point of time you might have understand that how to convert. And if I want to try directly, instead of taking a new variable, I can just perform it here. So what I can do is I might take R as variable. I can directly put a list, and then inside the list I can give a range, and inside that range I might give the value that if I want to just print from 1 to 10, so 1 will be the default gap. I can just give 1 to 10 and let me complete my list, and this is the list that I have created, and now I just need to print that. Here you go. So that's how you can do and play with range. Range is really important while going through loops. It reduces a lot of work, and this is the best thing of Python, because if you play with C, if you play with Java, if you play with C++, this is the most biggest headache thing to go into inside loops, but range solves a lot of problem. So in the next lecture we'll be talking about sets and also talking about dictionaries, which we also known as mapping.